The following episode contains or may contain spoilers. So if you're spoiler sensitive, maybe beware.
Yeah, you sensitive people.
Get out.
Oh, get in.
Also with Richard Madden's beautiful face.
Mm-hmm.
He's my home screen
Who's
right
Richard
now.
Madden?
He was Rob Stark.
Oh, that guy's good.
Yeah. And he's
Oh, no.
very
What else have you
handsome.
seen him in?
He's kind of... No, I don't know who he was at all.
What?
Are you about to insult Richard Madden?
Why not?
Because
Yeah, why?
I know
There's
I
no
threaten
reason
to
not
fight
to.
you all the time, but I will.
Over a guy you do not know.
Yeah.
Okay,
And his
well.
beautiful face. You can't deny.
I think he looks like a rat person. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Welcome to the Phantom Zone. 3 fans, 1 podcast, and a sea of comics.
I checked it out. All those numbers are correct.
Yeah?
All those numbers are correct.
A sea of them?
A whole sea.
How do you quantify that?
20.
Nice.
20.
Here, I never knew. We're going to run out of things to talk about.
It's like a homonym or whatever, because it's like a murder of crows.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that's
A sea of comics is how you count.
Exactly. It's a
Oh.
group of comics.
Yeah, but how many
We're so clever. I never
We
knew
are
that.
so
how many crows is a murder of crows?
It's just a group
20.
of them. No, it's just a group of them.
Any group, that's true. Yeah.
That's why I was going to say you can't quantify a sea of comics.
Are you a little afraid of crows?
Anyway, today we are going to
I
be
am.
talking about royalty.
Royal families and comics.
Yes,
Heck yeah.
and how royalty functions in comics. It's a weird kind of niche in comics.
It's a lot is the thing.
There are a lot of examples.
Yeah.
A lot of love for the families.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about this a little bit on the Aquaman episode.
Yeah.
Because it is true.
Because we had to.
Yeah, and it's true. But there's like way more monarchies in comics than I think are left in the contemporary world.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean, there's not that many big ones in comics.
That's true.
Like, there's a lot of families that
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
are rulers of. What was the name of the place in Princess Bride or the
Princess Bride?
Princess Diaries?
Bologna.
Genovia.
Genovia. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, there's places like that where it's like, that place doesn't matter. But it got destroyed by the Avengers, so whoops.
No, but that's the thing is that like at least in comics they do stuff because like our royal families are kind of all like just figureheads or celebrities, you know, very rich people or whatever that like stand for stuff. But it's like the ones in comics that blow stuff up.
Not always.
Not
but-
always.
Yeah.
but
What I
we-
love about royal families is the built-in drama
Mm-hmm.
that it brings to the table.
a lot of
I mean,
sideways glances.
Yes, it's a lot of, I don't know, there's just a lot of inbuilt drama already. It's something that the author can just take over when a new author comes in, because it's like, who's going to be the future ruler of this country, which is inbuilt drama between siblings and also fear for the poor citizens of whoever.
Yeah,
yeah.
that's true. I mean, it's so funny too because royal families or royalty in general always works on. There's the king or whoever is currently ruling, and
Yeah.
then their brother that wants it.
Yeah.
Why are the brothers always mad?
Hey, I have a counterexample to that later.
It's true because people
But-
want power.
Yeah.
You know? Oh, and you know what? I think it's rife for that kind of stuff because usually with monarchies, the transfer of power is arbitrary because it's like the firstborn.
Yeah.
Which if you're like the secondborn and you're like, that guy's a doofus. All he does is eat cheese. That is the only thing he does. Then you would be like, no, I want to take the power, but you don't have the right.
Yeah, you would think that they would kind of take that into consideration, like how much cheese consumption. they
Yeah.
have.
Oh my God.
Too much, just
I mean,
enough.
figuratively, not actually.
Well, I
And-
think, yeah. No, you're okay. I think, I mean, with the Aquaman royal family and the Asgardian royal family, Atlantean, to Aquaman.
Aquamonian.
It's the younger sibling going like, my older brother is an idiot. The future of this country is kind of counting on me to take over the throne. So, I mean, like, obviously there's kind of this ingrained, like, I don't know, entitlement in these characters.
That's a very generous Loki, by the way.
Well,
like, he's just trying to help all the people out.
I'm saying I know, I'm being a little generous, but I feel like my favorite type of drama with royalty is when there's a person trying to usurp the throne and also they have a good point.
Yeah, that's good. That's true.
You know, it's like also the person to inherit the throne has a flaw that they need to correct before they're ready and all of that stuff. And I love when the usurper kind of, I don't know, makes a point.
Like Aquaman.
Yeah, exactly.
Or Black Panther for that matter.
Yeah,
I think you're right.
that's
There
true.
is kind of like a theme with that because remember Killmonger, everybody's like, he's bad, but he's got a point.
Yeah.
And actually in that movie, they kind of took the point.
Yeah.
Not totally. They weren't like, we should be martyrs and like scar ourselves or whatever. But they were like, we should get outside of our world. And they opened up like a science center in Brooklyn. That was like the way that they.
I think that was just the first step.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Baby steps.
Yeah.
Come
It would have been great if they did like wipe their hands off or like, and we are done.
Well, see, and I tend to favor, that's like, those are my favorite types of characters are like Orm and Loki. And I don't know, I have such a soft spot for Thor and Arthur and T'Challa, but I don't know.
Big, simple dummies.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, they have good hearts, and obviously they should take over the throne, not only because they're the firstborn, but because they're the most sincere, the most earnest, the kindest.
The kind-hearted simpleton.
Yeah, but sometimes they can be a little dim,
Yeah.
and they kind of need that person, usually their brother. Don't know why that is.
And it always begs the question, too, because most of the time they are kind of these big oops or whatever. It's
Yeah.
like, is that the person that should be running this entire race of people? I mean,
Yeah,
we
it's
have
difficult.
a government. Like,
Yeah.
do they know education at all?
Well, like classically, that is the character that people seem to want, like the pure-hearted and the
Yeah,
direct.
yeah.
And then lately, I feel like that there's been a lot of criticism against that because, like Game of Thrones, I think in some sense is a complete crapping upon the very idea that anybody good could operate in politics.
Yeah.
Like the best dude is like beheaded
Kill-
in the first
yeah,
season.
yeah.
And he's like, yeah, we will not be doing that story.
Good point. Good
Yeah,
point.
but I mean, to go back to your point about how there's always already preset drama, I think that's something that kind of draws people to it.
Yeah.
I mean, because you already have the whole setting, and they can do an entire world, an entire series or comic run or anything just within that family.
Yeah.
Which they usually do.
Yeah.
It's really interesting to see that side of the character instead of Thor just with the Avengers doing stuff. Then you get to see him, how he interacts with his mother and his father and his uncles.
I think monarchy in general and royalty is kind of romantic. So I think that's a big draw for people as well.
There's also just the idea that it's its own kind of MacGuffin, like the throne. Mm-hmm. You know, like you put it's power, and then you put a bunch of like power hungry people in a room who are going to go after it or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you know, I mean, it's I think it can't be stable inherently.
Yeah.
You know, you put that as a writer, and you know it's going to get shaken up. Yeah.
Because it kind of forces the story to be intelligent in a way, at least, as opposed to like, who's Thor gonna whack with his hammer this week? It's like,
Somebody's been reading her Thor comics. Let me tell you.
It is.
I did not mean to diss Thor. I'm just saying.
I mean, it is
get it.
interesting, and to talk about Thor a little bit, when Jason Aaron kind of did his whole, or is still doing his run on Thor, but when they finally went back to New Asgard and they were there, you got to really see the politics, especially with Jane, how she was, you know, an ambassador and everything like that. And they don't show that too much in comics anymore, which I wish they would show more of, like that political part of it, I guess.
Yeah, I think yeah.
Because it is interesting, because you have these characters that are used to bashing faces in, and it's interesting to see, oh, they do have a duty to make sure that their shit is okay, and then interacting with these people that they were just bashing their face in. Like,
No, it's true. And weirdly enough, I mean, like we forget, like Vikings had kings and societies and
Yeah.
thanes and things like that. So yeah, it's true. It's like you would have had these really like barbarous sword wielding people who also did have to like elect at some level leaders or something like that and have those meetings in a big hut, and the beer was so good. And fish. What always I don't know what we're talking about.
You really wanted to be a Viking, huh?
So much.
No wonder Thor's your fave.
Yeah.
And in a kind of a weird, because so you look at the comics, you look at Black Panther and Aquaman and Thor, and you can see the whole lineage of the royalty and where it came from. It's the same family line all the way down. But, well, except for Aquaman, I guess, because that gets a little weird, especially with Mira being in there now. That's a very modern kind of royalty situation.
Arthur has a lineage too, but you're right. It's not it's a bit diluted now.
It's not bred from incest, is what I'm trying to say, which usually is what happens in royalty. Mm-hmm. But so the Amazons are a little weird exception because they weren't made to be royalty, but they function as one.
Yeah.
They have a queen, there's princess and all that. Mm-hmm. They were just put there on Themyscira. Hippolyta's like, I'm queen now, so
yeah. I guess they had to have some sort of government, and again, the idea of a monarchy is very romantic. So,
and I think
no men.
Yeah,
it's true, and way better that way. No, but
I mean, they seem to be doing fine.
I do like that it kind of goes against the idea of men being inherently warlike, though. Only on the face of because in Themyscira it's like a bunch of women, no men, and what are they all doing? Like they got swords,
warrior race,
fighting, and stuff.
Have you seen Frigga? She's a badass.
Yes, I have. But the other thing about it, and I mentioned this on the last time, but I think that a lot of it is that the reason monarchy is really attractive from a writing standpoint, I mean, even a mythological writing standpoint, is that you can symbolize large political groups. You can personify them in sort of one sort of person. So Hercules, how does he offend the Amazons? He's the despoiler of Hippolyta. He attacks or I don't know, is it a sexual thing? I don't know. Mythology junkies will know. That's why Hercules.
I thought you meant in the comics. I was like, what?
Well, no, I think they imply it. As a matter of fact, Wonder Woman hates Hercules on the basis of his transgressions or whatever. But anyway, so it's a cool way of telling a story of these two groups of people clashing, but you can have two people sword fight or hate each other or something like that.
Or fight for the throne, fight for the future of a country.
Yeah,
and it is funny too in royalty. In the real world and in comics, how it functions. If you disrespect anybody in that royal family, you're just immediately an enemy to the entire country or the entire monarchy. I mean, if you say Hippolyta's hair looks a mess today, all of those Amazons probably would come and attack.
Somebody's talking shit about Artemis? Get them. Yeah, you're done.
And I think it's funny how it works that way. Because I mean, if I don't know, somebody said that about Scarlet Witch, she probably wouldn't even think about it, but you have this entire monarchy behind it.
I'm going to throw out a quick question for the two of you. Are there any of these comics we associate monarchically, I don't know, as monarchies or as royal families, and you don't like it? Like you think that's the weakest part of the comic?
No. I mean, I can't really think of one.
I can't
per
either.
se, because I think the basis of that character and where they came from has to do a lot with the royalty. That's how they got put in that situation usually in the first place. I mean, if Thor wasn't part of the royal family, he would have never became Thor.
Funny you should mention that, my imbearded friend. I shaved my beard. So
okay.
I was like,
what?
Yeah. But because I was gonna say, I think with Wonder Woman, it's not that I don't want her to have that history. It's just that I'm less interested in her as a kind of royal figure. But I am gonna say, and this is gonna strike some people weird as a Thor fan, I don't like that it's presented as him being in a royal family. Now, that may sound weird. And there's some great stories in it. So I'm not saying it was bad advice, but here's why. It really actually cuts away from the mythological roots. And you can see that in the way the Olympians are in Marvel. The idea is you have, you have Odin and you have Thor and Loki, and the gods in, as you know, in most mythologies are like these principles of different, of nature and stuff like that. They don't have a bunch of foot soldiery people running around. So if you saw Thor Ragnarok, you remember all those basically helpless Asgardians running around.
Yep.
It's that very royal structure that's produced those sorts of characters. Where with the Olympians, you just have 20 gods that are the gods of the world or whatever. And so at some level, I actually think it as fun as those palace dramas things are, it actually takes some of the godliness away when he's just a prince. It's almost very Anglophiled, where we were how do we tell Thor's story? Well, we'll fit it into a kind of King Arthur paradigm or something like
King
that.
Arthur.
I do too. I don't hate these stories. I just think it does detract a bit of it in a way.
Yeah, but I think they might do that only to give him some sort of driving force or some sort. Because I mean, if he had no connection with a group of people or people in general,
Yeah.
he would just be like those mythological gods.
Yeah.
Would he care about them?
Well, they still do fight and stuff, and I think Thor loves Midgardians, right? Earthers, if you don't know, and he's certainly well above them or whatever. And I don't want to come off too strong here, like I think it's awful and I hate it. I don't, but I do think it's worth thinking about the fact that in a certain way, that's kind of a thing an artifact of comic storytelling. That maybe drifts further away from the mythology than you would think on first glance.
Yeah.
I mean, with Wonder Woman though, it's not that I don't like it. I think it just functions a little different. Mm-hmm. It's, she is just held in such high respect with the Amazons.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as we know, she hasn't really been back there apparently. So, but she's held in such high respect that I don't think it's necessarily like Thor's monarchy.
Yeah.
It's just more of, they all have this appreciation and mutual respect for each other, and they recognize kind of the status that she has.
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessarily like she is the princess type of thing.
Yeah, and she's so wayward in most of her stories. You're kind of not dealing with her,
and it's not really a factor in her stories too much.
Yeah.
Like they say Princess Diana, but I think it's more of a name than an actual title.
That's a good point.
If that makes sense.
No,
Yeah.
I think that's a good point because in a lot of ways she could easily just be like their superhero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And most of her stories would function the same way. But it so happens that her mom is Hippolyta, the queen of the Amazons.
Well, in her story, she's more of an ambassador from Themyscira as opposed to a monarch, a princess.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and that's a good point because in her stories, they don't necessarily see her as that.
Yeah.
She is an ambassador and she is more of a diplomat in a weird, brutalic way.
Yeah.
She can punch all their faces in. But
And to sort of go further with the Thor thing, it's true that most of his stories don't work that way either. Like they have the palace drama stuff, but it's usually him off fighting in the kind like mythological figures. There's not a lot of like him being part of some principality where he negotiates like treaties or something like that. There's not so much ruling that they're doing.
Yeah, his stories too function more of like kind of everybody's in their different tribes
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there is that aspect to it. I mean, I like the royalty of
Yeah.
Thor. I mean, especially in the movies because in Dark World, it was very much more of a palace drama.
Yes, very much.
Than any of the other ones. And I really like that movie. And a lot of people hate it.
It is
and that's
terrible.
You're making
probably
it. I
why.
mean, yeah. There's for my part, I'll say with that one, lot to love, lot to hate.
Yeah.
I guess and the reason I bring it up is just to dissect it a little bit to ask like some of these characters. I think they're essentially that. I think Black Panther really needs like such a heart of his character is to be the king of Wakanda or have some relationship to that.
Well, it just enriches the character.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
with Black Panther, it really enriches it. And I think they did a really good job with his supporting characters.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, without that, I mean, I probably wouldn't be a Black Panther fan.
They feel like a royal family in a way some of the other ones don't. In a way that I think Wonder Woman, and again, it's not so much that couldn't be there, but we don't necessarily have most of her stories where she's in, somebody's holding court and there's a kind of Game of Thrones-y kind of.
And that's a good point because in Wonder Woman stories, when they do hold court, per se, they don't, it's not like a court. They have all of the people that are there. They have the generals or the people that train these Amazons. It's very equal in that aspect. It's not like here's the parliament and then here's everybody else. You really get to see everybody kind of involved with it, which I think that's how it should work.
We'll see. And I've been thinking about your question that you posed about what I dislike. And I guess, and I love the dynamics between like, it's typically brothers. But I guess I would long for like a different route, a different like take on royalty. And I feel like Black Panther with his relationship to Shuri is that, which is why I liked it a lot and why I feel it's kind of unique in terms of just royalty in general is that they're very supportive of each other. There's he of course had a complicated relationship with his father because he passed away, but he was on good terms with him. He's on good terms with his mother. And I feel like that's also a nice representation of just family in comics.
That's a good point. And the women that were supposed to be his wives, he completely flipped that on its head. Yeah. They're more of equals with him as far as being bodyguards, and he holds Okoye in such high respect. I think it is a very unique
royal representation.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it feels like in a lot of Black Panther comics, he's kind of got Wakanda on lock, and the drama isn't so much about his ability to hold on to the throne or something like that. I mean, there is in the movie with Killmonger, but I'm saying generally it's not so much like his brother's always trying to take the throne or something like that. It's much more about their relationship with the outside world.
Yeah.
You know, Wakanda, like having to, how secret, how removed, how involved should it be and stuff like that.
And I think that's a big difference between that and Aquaman, because Aquaman has a lot of inside drama. There's a lot of stuff going on with those Atlanteans.
Yeah.
So one thing, we're not...
And the surface world.
And we're not willing to do this with Wakanda, and I'm glad we're not, which is... say the Wakandans are kind of shitty people. But some of the Aquaman drama comes from, like, it's weird how poorly the Atlanteans are portrayed. And I don't mean they are a different way. Obviously, it's fictional, but I'm just saying, like, they're often, like, they're superstitious and mean and warlike and everything like that. So, yeah, I think a lot. Yeah.
I think it's because they might lean into the whole monarchy and royalty stuff a little too much with Aquaman. They're very
I actually really like it. I feel like
I do too.
I think it's boring if they all looked the same, which was my point with bringing up Black Panther again. It's,
that's a good
I
point.
like that the Atlanteans kind of hate the surface world in general. I know there's exceptions, but I mean, like, technically we're polluting them. We're slowly killing them. Why wouldn't they hate us?
Do you know why they're
Please
so
let that
angry,
be
by
a
the way?
driving force.
You know why they're so angry?
Because they're underwater.
Because they're salty.
Oh my God. No. Oh gosh.
That occurred to me. I was like, oh, this is going to be...
Anyway, I love T'Challa. He's very dignified. And they picked a very princely actor.
All true. Yeah, I mean, and I also want to say, you got to think about, like, you know, if you have a good royal situation in comics, as often happens, like, look for the danger signs of a bad person in your royal court. They're basically all the same. So if it's like, is it a white guy? Does he have dark hair?
Yeah.
Is he greasy?
Does he look
Hey!
like some sort of malcontent?
Yeah.
Is he clever but kind of barbed in his wit? That guy's coming
Doesn't have
for
a little friend, like a lot of friends.
Oh, he's coming for your throne. So, you know, maybe
Don't
banish him now.
Ever eat porridge from this person? It's probably poisoned.
I'll be honest, I do not know what that reference is, but... Oh, I thought it was like a specific example of like a porridge-related death.
No. I just think of like royalty and porridge. Poison.
That's probably in Hamlet. Somebody died that
Or
way.
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, some greasy guy poisoned some king in Lord of the Rings, right?
Yes.
No, I think Grima Wormtongue might give Theoden some porridge, but it's not poison.
Oh, man.
It's just regular porridge. No, it didn't taste good. It wasn't a high quality porridge.
You have a specific royal that you wanted to highlight, right?
We all followed different, did a little research or like decided to focus on one royal family or whatever. And I picked one, like everybody. And I'll say this, maybe write some more on this one because I was familiar with it. It's, by the way, Markovia, the Markov family from Markovia.
Nice.
Yeah. And I just feel like maybe they could write a little bit more because there weren't as many stories as I was really hoping to find. Mm-hmm. So I want to break it down a little bit.
Of course.
Because it was described, there's a lot of good stuff here. It was described as an Eastern European country. Mm-hmm. That's the idea. And Markovia is not real for the listener. It's one of those like, because DC will make up more cities, right? But all of the companies love fake countries. That's like a big trope
Because they can destroy them without that actual company getting mad.
That's a good country. Yeah. It'd be a weird thing to be like, and then Austria was stricken from the map by Ultron. Watch it. Yeah, it would sound like a weird declaration of war or something like that. But yeah, so it's Markovia, which not to be confused for Marvel's Sarkovia, of course. Don't
all the Ovias, man.
Exactly. Or I think Image made one called Razor Force Cyberkovia in the 90s. I don't know if you, but they would have because they were crappy at naming things. Is my point. Anyway. But yeah, so, and I love this little fact that I looked up. So it's supposed to be a Eastern Bloc country, and every time they do like a animated thing, they speak in these bad Russian accents. It's like vaguely European, I don't know. But then they put a map of where Markovia is supposed to be, and it's right next to France. Which I think you will find is not in Eastern Europe. It's as far away from Eastern Europe as Europe gets.
Hey, at least it's in Europe.
Yeah, it's very eastern near Paris.
They just didn't want to put it in Russia.
Yeah,
That's
for
why.
sure. No, actually, here's the reason, and this is I've looked this up too. And so the only story I'm really going to talk about here with the family is kind of its origin story in terms of comics, and it's because they wanted to do a Nazi story. Mm-hmm. They wanted to do a story. I don't really know how far back it went. Like I think Marv Wolfman is the guy that did it, but so they needed it to be ex-occupied Nazi territory in Markovia. Okay, so anyway, that's sort of the backdrop. So they were like, oh, let's move it here. Americans are fundamentally ignorant of geography. Like, nobody's going to know. But so if you're not familiar, the two characters that are most prominent from Markovia are Terra of the Teen Titans and Geoforce from the Outsiders. Super cool. And they both, interestingly enough, have like the power of like moving the earth. The Terra has a pun name. That's fun. And she has the power to kind of move earth in the more typical, like cause earthquakes.
Earthbender.
Earthbender. Airbender gave us such good language for powers. You know what I mean? It's like, cause otherwise you have to use some weird Latin, like, geoaquatikinesis or whatever. It's like, oh, you mean waterbending? Yeah. That's it. Okay. But she has that ability. And Geoforce, her older brother, has a slight, an earth-based ability that's not as on the nose. So because it's the earth, he has the ability to manipulate gravity. So he can make things lighter than they should be or heavier, like because of their relationship to the earth. And then also he has the ability, to like kind of use thermal kind of powers. And he has these lava blasts, which look a lot like laser beams, but whatever. It's heat. That's what he's doing. So the whole deal is, this Nazi guy tries to take over Markovia, and his name, and I hope I'm getting this right, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, is Baron Bedlam.
Okay.
Because in comic books, if you have a royal name, you also have to have a bad thing afterwards. It's got to be like, because of Count Vertigo, of course, or like Viceroy Murderkill. That'd be my
fave.
That's my character that I'm going. But yeah, Baron Bedlam tries to invade Markovia, and then turns out a scientist, something like Helga Jace, it's Dr. Jace, gives Brian powers, and that's it. And then DC's a bit confused because they'll often like, well, he had an operation, but he also had a metagene the whole time. So it's that kind of thing. And he uses that power to repel Bedlam's invasion and protect Markovia. Okay,
How
so
sweet.
that's the basic,
Aww.
that's the kind of setup. And Brian's kind of gone back and forth. Sorry, Brion. It's Brion because again,
I was going to say, you're not saying it
rather
right.
than just, well, it's not, I always said Brion. Or so in my head. I didn't give it this Brion or whatever.
Aw,
that I guess
that
you're supposed
sounds
to
cool.
do. Yeah, but it's like,
Fancy.
that's also an American thing, which is like, rather than just look up a European name, they're like, it's Brian with an O. They're so weird over there. But yeah, so the royal family, and Brian's taken up the throne before because he's had to and stepped down. He has an older brother, Gregor, who is, I get like, I don't know, mayonnaise if it was a person.
Oh,
like
God.
there's nothing going on there. He's just a dude who's older, and like he's kind of a way to have somebody taking care of Markovia, and Geoforce can still be like on the Outsiders or the Justice League or something like that. So, and then as many of you know, they have a younger sister, and that's Terra Markov.
Dun, dun, dun.
That bitch.
Yes, but in like a kind of like there's got to be royal scandal in royal scandalous form. She is, I don't know what a girl bastard is. Bastarda.
I mean, don't they still call her a bastard?
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I want it to be gendered. This is one case where they need a good old fashioned gendering.
Did you know what you say? Illegitimate.
Illegitimate child. She was, Gregor had sex with someone that wasn't, it was, infidelity. I assume a gypsy. I don't know. That's probably reading into things. Is that too much? Anyway, so I don't know. It's fun that way. But anyway, so illegitimate child. He sends her to America. I think. I mean, that she ends up in America. He sends her away.
Yes,
and she becomes evil. She's all mad. She's like, she becomes a mercenary, and then she's hired by Deathstroke. So that's how she becomes bad. Yeah.
Of all people. So Deathstroke.
So it doesn't really make a lot of sense. Well, here's the way where it doesn't really make a lot of sense, but the idea is like the reason it's important that she was not just related to the Markovs or whatever is that the explanation for why she's such a rotten asshole is that she was turned away from the royal throne. is the idea. And she becomes a mercenary, and she'll do things that nobody else will do. She'll like crush kids with rocks and stuff like that. And that's why Deathstroke hired her or whatever.
Oh, man.
And then she's 16 and they have sex and it's super weird. It is. That was in the Judas contract. Yeah.
It is really weird.
I blocked that out.
Yeah.
I like in the animated show that they did, there was that really uncomfortable scene where she like gets up on him and like tries to kiss him. And I'm very glad that he kind of just pushed her away.
Yeah.
He's like, please don't do this. She's a teenager.
Yeah. It's way creepier in the comics. I mean, it doesn't show it, but it's just, it definitely, it doesn't skirt away from the fact that they're like having a sex, which is really funny because like obviously that's wrong. It's also wrong for Deathstroke to kill people, but it's like that's the moment where it's like, I had sex with a 16-year-old.
Yeah,
like he shot one in the knee. That's also bad
because I think that just is a completely different type of psychology.
Yeah, because it's not just evil; it's creepy.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah. Anyway, I know we now we're pretty far afield from the Markovian
royal family.
Yeah, there was a sex scandal in there. There's monarchy. That is a royal family.
Yeah, absolutely. And I, if anything, I think I like to draw attention to this because I like both characters a lot. Geoforce and Terra are really awesome. But they really could do more with it. They really could explore the area, and they've been close to it because when so do you guys know Batman and the Outsiders? You know, the idea is that Batman is like, gonna
fuck the Justice
League.
League.
The Justice League. Okay, I guess. So if you say fuck, I can't really say screw. Like, fuck the Justice League. And then he's like, I'm going to go on a world tour and get a whole bunch of gullible rubes with powers, and they're going to be my Justice League. And that's what he does. And that's when he runs into, that's when we find out about Markovia. And when Batman's been off the team before and the Outsiders have just been their own team. Mm-hmm. And in that case, Brian's kind of picked up, the leadership. Mm-hmm. Tambourine, I don't know. Mm-hmm. And
baton,
then,
probably.
That's probably more appropriate. And then they've been in Markovia as their home base, which is why I mentioned it.
Make them sound like a traveling band.
Yeah, well, kind of. But yeah, so that's Markovia.
Yeah, and it is funny that the new Young Justice Outsiders, that's where it starts. It starts with Markovia because of the metahuman trafficking and all that, and it's really good. I like how they did that. I don't think they mentioned Terra.
No, and that's was not disappointing or whatever, but
I feel like it's like an untapped resource.
I expected they're aware of each other for some of it, mostly after her death. Mm-hmm. So she was estranged, and you get the sense that like Brian either doesn't know much about her or had very little connection. So you have these two people connected to the royal family that had very little involvement with one another for most of their history.
But that makes sense because she's a bastard.
No, in the story,
he would want to hide her.
I think he's just saying that they should explore that more.
Exactly.
Oh, no, I agree. Yeah, but I don't think she's around in comics anymore.
No, she is now.
What?
So this is interesting too. I mean, this is more just Terra info, but like after Rebirth, New 52 through Rebirth, she's just back, and it's one of those parts of continuity that's never been fully.
Where is she?
So she's been in Deathstroke's comics. So Deathstroke formed his own Teen Titans. Help me out with the names, guys. It's very specific. I think it's Defiance is the name of the team. And she's just on the team, and they don't really ever explain
she's back.
Exactly. And so Terra's weird anyway because she's been reincarnated and dead so many times and like clones and stuff like that. And with New 52 and Rebirth, they didn't exactly streamline her history. So we don't really know, I guess.
What are they going to... I mean, she's not that big of a character. Yeah. And I think if she just pops up like she normally does...
That's true. Yeah.
I don't think they really care too much about it.
I would like to at least know if she's the same Terra from the Judas contract.
Yeah.
But I hope they clear that up at some point. And maybe while they're doing that, that story can take place in Markovia. And we'll get a little bit more Markovian
I would read an offshoot from Markovian comics and politics and royal family drama.
Because really now it's just a launch pad for any time like somebody thinks of a story to do in Europe.
Yeah.
It's like, well, let's do it in Markovia. So yeah, hopefully they expand upon it. But that's him. I like him, but give me more. That's what I'm saying.
All right. Well, my royal that I think deserves more attention in that regard is Miss Coriander, Starfire. People don't really think about her in the royal context, and it doesn't really inform a lot of her stories and comics now. But looking back at her origins, that shaped her to who she is. So if you want any understanding of Starfire Coriander. I'm just going to call her Starfire because it's easier.
Yeah.
Starfire as a character, you have to go back, and the dynamics and politics that went into her early life reflect now on her comic book stories. And I kind of wish they would tie it in. I know Tamarin is kind of destroyed sometimes. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not.
It's like Krypton. It's like,
Yeah.
is it there?
Yeah.
No, it was destroyed, but people keep coming from there, so.
Zen Law is like that too. Silver Surfers.
Yeah.
Also, isn't coriander an Indian spice?
Oh my God.
And then I think tamarind is a kind of fruit. I don't know. I'm just saying there's a lot of edible
Anyway,
names.
Starfire is from Tamarin. She is the middle child.
I did not know this. And
Really?
I'm so mad at myself.
She's such a middle child, though. You get
I
Yeah.
am a middle child,
yeah,
actually.
yeah. And you look a lot like Starfire. Okay.
I wish.
But yeah, her older sister, most commonly known as Blackfire. I know people really like Blackfire, and she's a really cool character.
She's cool, and she's a big threat.
Yeah, and we'll see. And it
mean
goes
Starfire.
into the whole secession thing where Blackfire was the older sibling, but she was born and got ill, like really, really in infancy, and it cut her off from her ultraviolet powers, or the way they can turn ultraviolet energy into flying energy. So she was taken out of the line of secession, which means
Because she couldn't fly.
Exactly. Like she was like, it seems very Atlantean. Like they kind of judged her for not being able to do a specific thing.
Yeah.
And they're a race of warrior people. So they're like, if you can't fly, you're useless, basically.
Talk about insult to injury, too, because, like, you don't get to fly.
And
That's
also,
badass.
you're not going to be queen ever. You're taken out.
And
It
no
would-
sandwiches.
And they usually do that too. That's kind of like a trope with these royalty families, that the person that was supposed to get it, or you would think to get it, has this one disability or disadvantage, and they're like, nah, we're
Yeah.
gonna give it to this person.
Doesn't. And so Starfire was next in line, but she also has a younger brother. There's quite an age gap there. So he was an infant when much of the drama in Starfire's life took place, but he is commonly known as Darkfire. Family thing, I guess. But when the main drama with Starfire happened when it was after Blackfire was taken out of the line of secession, the Citadel attacked Tamaran. And in order to keep the peace, her father, King Mander,
What's his name?
King Mander.
Turquoise
I don't
fire.
know if he has a fire alias, but King Mander, I think is how it's pronounced.
I think that's it.
Right?
From what I've
It's always
read.
like M apostrophe, and it always ends in an R or something.
That's a DC thing, which is like make a normal name and then throw like apostrophes inside of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I call those comma on the top.
Oh, come on the top. Come on the top fire.
But he gave Starfire away to keep the peace, and he was really upset about it, but did it anyway, asshole. And so she endured, I think, 6 years of torture and sexual abuse, which again goes into her mentality as a character a lot. I kind of wish they didn't go there. But there it is.
That adds an extra, because usually when you read Starfire, especially when she comes up in like the movies or comics, she seems this very, not dim-witted, but more like fish out of water type thing. And like, oh, what is this thing?
Like
what is
Splash or something.
Yeah.
But then you know her history, and it's like, geez, you went through the ringer.
Yeah. Well, and then, like, while she was in captivity, the Scions did experiments on her and Blackfire, and that's how Blackfire now has powers, and super, super strong powers.
They should have just done that from the beginning.
Yeah.
She could have been next in line.
I mean, if there was technology out there, too bad it had to be, kidnapped, tortured in order for her to get these powers, but whatever.
It wouldn't be a royal family if there wasn't any of that.
And was Blackfire always like a bad seed? Or was it like that? Just the.
I mean, from infancy,
Got sick.
she was pushed to the side.
I think
Yeah,
there was
yeah.
always that mentality of, I don't know, that something was taken from me.
Okay.
You have what was supposed to be mine. So I think,
She
from
demands
early
respect.
on. Yeah, exactly.
But it's just like with a lot of these things, it's like, oh, thank God that evil one didn't get power.
Yeah,
But in this case, the not getting power maybe made her kind of evil.
I think that's how it usually goes, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like Loki may not have been as much of an asshole if he
Different
wasn't-
circumstances.
Yeah, if he
Loki
wasn't-
is Loki. It's true.
Thank you.
I can't dispute that. You're going to tell me Loki's not Loki? Okay,
Yeah, but
sorry.
if he never knew that he was a
that's a good
frost
point.
giant and
Yes.
treated with respect.
He would have been a crappy frost giant because his dad would have eaten him. Because that's kind of how Lao Fei works.
Oh my god.
Anyway, back to Tamara.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yes. So yes, tortured. She escaped and against her better judgment, freed Blackfire, was attacked by Blackfire.
Her name is Blackfire. It wasn't Hugfire.
It's like hers, like, because Starfire's name is Coriander. I think hers is like Comander, something like that. It's, again, names.
These
so.
alien names.
I know. But she eventually found her way to Earth. And again, in different continuities, Tamaran is still there. Sometimes it's not. Is it? It's meh. But she was engaged and widowed twice. So she married one of the princes in Tamaran for peace, to keep the peace between their countries there. And the second time she married a general in the Tamaran army for love. Both of them were killed in battle. So, yeah.
She should have picked better warriors.
She came to Earth and then got engaged to Dick Grayson. If I would have known her history at that time, I would have been super worried for his life because she's a Black Widow. Not really a Black Widow, but you know.
He got off light. He just turned into Rick.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that is something that whenever I read Starfire in the comics, I don't think about her being royalty.
Yeah.
So I think that goes back to the Wonder Woman thing, and I think it's interesting how they kind of push that aside until Blackfire decides to come in.
Yeah.
You know.
Fuck shit up.
Yeah. But I mean,
You know what it's like? It's like a rich person, but then they go to like Cabo and they're like all wild and doing jello shots and stuff like that. And that they're going to inherit. They're going to work for the bank later on because their dad got him that good job. But now so Earth is like her Cabo is what I'm saying.
She's like shrugging off responsibility.
Yeah, you're not. The analogy is true and stupid. So.
But
as
yeah,
they usually are.
I wish that, I don't know, it kind of informs her character now, and I wish they would tap more into that. But
there is a interesting story that just started happening. It's called Justice League Odyssey, and has to do with Darkseid, Starfire, Cyborg, Azrael, and I think Jessica Cruz is in
they're
it too.
really random characters.
Very random, and it's all in space.
Nice.
And you find out that there's these worlds in the ghost sector, which is like the far reaches nobody goes to. You can't get out or can't get in. Somehow they did.
Again, called the Ghost Sector.
Ghost sector. And there's a whole race of people that worship her as a god.
Whoa.
And Cyborg and Azrael. It's really weird, super interesting. But yeah, I think it's really interesting that's like the closest they've gotten to royalty with Starfire.
Yeah.
In like the last 10 years.
She's a princess.
Yeah, but she's being worshipped as a god. Yeah, and Blackfire's back too. So.
She's like really, you know what? They're also really nice. We forget that. Like, Starfire's like really humble and nice for royalty.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
well,
no-
until you piss her off, and then
Yeah.
you see why there's fire in her name.
No, but she's a badass. But I'm saying, remember like the first Thor movie where he's like, "I'll have another," and he breaks the coffee cup. Like that was like that's very princey. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So she's confident but not arrogant.
Yeah, she's not a dick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
That's
Missing
very true.
that.
Gotta appreciate it.
All right, now we're gonna get a little Game of Thronesy here.
Yes.
This is our two. We're just kind of like, these are fun. These are fun little ones.
Well, I
This
think
is the
they're-
big deal.
Yeah, I think they're worth being mentioned.
Yeah,
which
for
is
sure.
Why we talked about them instead of the big ones.
Mm-hmm.
But this one is a big one, but we have not talked about them.
Correct.
And they're absolutely fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So the Inhumans are royalty. If X-Men were royalty, this would be them.
That's a good way to look at it.
Because they're
yeah.
essentially X-Men, but with royalty.
Mm-hmm.
So all started when the Skrull and Kree War were happening millions of years ago. What did the Kree decide to do but get Neanderthals and experiment on them to create soldiers? Which, that's how Inhumans came to be.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man.
Which, I mean, Neanderthal, I guess. You see these people making fire and poking things with sticks.
There's
and,
potential there.
Yeah. But I guess they found out that the cosmic entities had messed with their genetic code, and they're like, oh, we can make something out of this. So that's where the mist came from, the Terrigen mist.
Terrigen mists.
And that awakens the, I guess, abilities inside them.
Mm-hmm.
So the current Inhumans is ran by Blackagar Boltagon.
You might know him as
Black Bolt.
Why? Just do that.
Why? I mean,
It's
I
like,
don't.
a lot catchier, I think.
I think they just had to make them different and give them these weird names to separate them. So Black Bolt is one of my favorite characters in Marvel, and he doesn't speak. He can't speak because if he does, he can level anything in front of him.
That's terrifying.
Yes. He's really cool. Striking the way he looks. And he's married to Medusa. I don't even know what her actual name is. I think it's like Medusa Lith. Something dumb.
Her name is also Blackagar.
But it's really interesting the way that the Inhumans work, because over the time after the Korean scrolls kind of went away, they formed this monarchy, and to preserve good genetics within the Inhumans, because this Terrigen Mist would create deformities and all that kind of stuff. So to get away from that, they decided to stick with one bloodline. They were racists. And they only wanted to stick with the good and pure ones. I'm just saying, that's racist to me.
Yeah.
Well, it's in this case, it's just so they don't like turn gross.
Racist.
Yeah.
No, I'm
I
kidding.
agree. Now that I put it that way, it sounds racist.
I mean,
Okay,
they
yeah,
marry,
true.
there's like cousins married to each other and like
Yeah.
all this weird kind of very similar Game of Thrones-y incest stuff going on. But they made these awesome characters, so there are some good things about incest.
Oh
I
my
guess.
god.
Can I pick up on the X-Men thing?
Go ahead.
Because
Yes, please.
Yeah, because I think you make a good point. The way the Inhumans work is unlike the X-Men, like unlike mutants where they get their powers on puberty automatically. It's a much more cultural, like kind of ritualistic kind of thing. That when a Inhuman child comes of age, they are exposed to the Terrigen Mists, and then they become something.
Yeah, they get put in cocoons.
Yeah,
Oh
and
my.
they get powers. Sometimes they get
Well, the really
Yeah.
cool thing about them is where the whole monarchy and their government system comes to be. Once you get exposed to that, and depending on what your powers are, how useful they are, what you look like after, it's a whole caste system. So they'll just put you, that's your role. So if you have a really useful power, you're probably going to be higher up on the noble scale. But if you're useless and could grow your fingernails at will, probably going to
you were going to be a typist at the DMV.
That is an ingrained, interesting dynamic system.
It's like Plato's Republic. Like they just get to you're put where they're supposed to go.
Yeah.
Well, they have this, I think it's called the genetic authority, and they overrule the royal family. So they have the final say on like, no, this person is good genetics.
It's like the Khalasar people, like the ladies. Remember from the Dothraki, like the ladies who
Oh,
get
yeah.
to,
The widows?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like they kind of have a weird. They don't have political power in terms of like fighting or like deciding who's going to war, but they like have the internal. Oh, that's really cool. I
Yeah, if
didn't
they
know
make
about that.
if they pass a bill, it's gonna go through.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it's really interesting, and I like them a lot because of that dynamic. So you have these stories and these characters that are really out there. They're exaggerated in their powers, even the way they look, very much like X-Men, but you have the extra dynamic of being kind of this weird hybrid of Atlanteans that separated themselves with a royal family going on. So I think it's really interesting.
What's cool to me about this is that this is just a royal family unto itself, and the Inhumans are like. It's not like other things where a character who's in another team is from a royal family.
Yeah.
Inhuman comics it's the whole thing is the royal family.
Yeah.
And it's about their like weird, I don't know, goings on and different people trying to take control or something like that.
Yeah, well, and so like we just talked about the whole brother rivalry thing. Maximus the Mad he's Loki essentially.
Yeah.
I mean,
He is very Loki-y.
I like him a lot.
He has the ability to I think it's weird because he doesn't have telepathy.
Mind
He can
control.
he can control people's mind. He's like the Purple Man. He's like
Yes.
Kilgrave in a way.
Very persuasive person.
And he's a genius too. So he's also building shit a lot.
That's
to be
terrifying.
fair, to
Yeah.
be fair, most of the Inhumans are very intelligent.
Yeah, that's
So,
true.
which I think is funny that they're like, "Oh, he's a genius." It's
Yeah,
like, oh, okay, why
A
not
genius
give,
among geniuses.
Yeah, why not give the person that has the Mad at the end of their name this much intellect?
Well, they're all like, I'm good at differential equations. And he's like, I built a virus that can kill a planet. Oh, well, great.
Different ways.
Yeah.
There is some interesting political drama in there too, because Triton, which is part of the royal family, he was exposed to the Terrigen Mist, and he came out as a scaly fish man and could not breathe air and had to be put underwater. And his brother Karnak was not exposed to it because they're like, oh shit.
We're afraid it's going to happen to you too.
Yeah, we don't want you turning into like some octopus thing. So we're going to like exile you to this. I can't remember. Do you remember what the name was? It was like the intelligent people.
I don't. The place they went. No, I don't.
Yeah. Well, anyway, he became
Look it up, guys.
he became a martial artist, a very well-renowned martial artist. And he has, I don't want to say ability, but he has the skill to find weaknesses in whatever he's fighting or doing.
The flaws in anything.
Yeah, exactly.
From a battle plan to an opponent's
So
skull.
he's the tactician, basically.
Yes.
Exactly. So he'll fight somebody with a big gun and he'll hit the gun in the perfect place where it dismantles.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you still got powers.
That's cool.
You're fine.
That is true. It's like, but that's a good trivia idea that Karnak didn't get his powers from the Terrigen Mists. He got them because he didn't want to, or his parents didn't want to expose him to it.
Exactly.
So that's cool.
Why hasn't he been exposed to it now?
I don't know. I think
I just think it's interesting. It's like your parents are dead.
It might be an age thing where it's like they can only do it at puberty. I don't know. They might have to be latent.
But then you have Medusa, which just like her name, she has flowy red hair. It's as strong as steel. I think that's as powerful as it is.
Yes, and that is important.
Yes,
because people talk shit about her all the time, and they're like, it's just movable hair. It's like, yeah, it's like her hair is Dr. Octopus.
Yeah. Each strand.
Yeah.
Who's that? The lady from Mortal Kombat. That's who it's reminding me of.
Oh,
is there a hair lady in?
Yeah, the one
Sindel?
with the Sindel. There we go. That's her name.
She's actually a combination of both of them because she screams and she has crazy ass hair.
That is true.
But yeah, Medusa can rip you in half with her hair. So yeah,
and she can control the strands of it. So it's not just like one big clump of it. It's individual strands.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, and then her sister. Also very overpowered.
Yeah.
She can control the 4 elements. Mm-hmm. Her name's Crystal. I don't know how that.
Yeah. Cause she's like cool.
It's
Crystal. Cool.
But yeah, I mean that's really the main kind of royal family, and you have Gordon as well. Gorgon.
Yeah,
I always say Gordon.
Gordon.
I'm thinking,
he owns a bookstore, and it's very cool.
But he's just half bull. So
oh my.
He can make like earthquakes when he stomps the ground.
Yeah.
He's really like their Colossus. Mm-hmm. And actually in X-Men versus Inhumans, they have a badass fight.
Yes, they do.
It's really cool.
Yes, they do. But yeah, and then so the really cool thing was the Terrigen Mist gets released into the world, and that's where Kamala Khan comes from. She's an Inhuman.
Yep.
Which I think a lot of people forget.
That's
as well.
true.
That's cool.
Yeah.
They were. It was during that time when they were trying to make
Ronin.
Well, they were trying to make the Inhumans the mutants because it like there was kind of a directive from Marvel because they weren't going to be able to produce X-Men movies and that kind of stuff. So they were like putting a lot behind Inhumans. So they create like a new. They're called New Humans or there's a name for it.
NU Humans.
It's this new generation of Inhumans. There's actually a bunch of them. I think Miss Marvel is the only one that's really gotten a lot of traction. Mm-hmm. But there's
she's
other characters
amazing.
out there. Yeah,
she's really cool. I like her character a lot. But I think it is interesting that they did decide to do that because the story was good. It had to do with Ronin and all that. And it was, I think Black Bolt was the reason why it happened. Black Bolt wanted more Inhumans. He wanted to kind of make the race come up again.
Yeah.
And when Thanos came and was fighting him and he was looking for his son, he didn't know where he was, so what does Black Bolt do? He yells no, destroys Adelan, and releases the bomb, and then thus Miss Marvel was born.
I forgot that's how it happened, because that's a great story. That's very true.
Yeah.
We haven't mentioned one amazing Inhuman that people love so much, and we forget that he's an Inhuman, because he happens to be shaped like a dog. But
Lockjaw. Why did I forget about because he's not human.
No, so this is interesting. I think that maybe they've forgotten this. Originally, Lockjaw wasn't a dog. He was an Inhuman who, when he was exposed to the Terrigen Mist, actually became this big bulldog-looking thing that couldn't talk. But he's actually like a human, or a humanoid in terms of his intelligence or whatever. That's kind of changed a lot. But he has the ability to
transport.
He's like their megabus.
He's their Nightcrawler, essentially. Yeah. But I really like, kind of side note, I like Lockjaw and Better Ray Bill. I like how they have these like team ups and they've like been together quite a bit.
It's a horse and a dog.
Yeah. Yeah. So essentially Inhumans are really cool in their royal aspect because they really play into that. Like I said, it's like X-Men if they were royalty. And what would happen?
One of the things that's also really cool is that relationship, the king and the queen, because you have the king who's very much like in charge, but he's quiet and can't talk.
He's called the Silent King.
He is. And I wanted to mention this too because people think it's just the voice. This is just superhero stats, nerds shit. But he's also like Superman level strong. He's got that kind of like bad attitude. So he, even when he doesn't get to talk because he'll destroy everything, he's one of the most powerful Inhumans.
Well, I like how they kind of take that power. They give him a kryptonite. Yeah. Because he could just like whisper. Yeah. And he could kill somebody point blank. Yeah. So that's how powerful his ability is. So I like that they kind of give him another ability. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And so I'm just saying, even without the power, he could still probably give the Hulk a good fight, you know, but yeah, so then you have Medusa, and she's kind of as an important a monarch as anyone, and she ends up not really just being his translator. She ends up kind of running shit too. Yeah. She's awesome. Yeah.
It's very much, there's a lot of similarities because I love the Inhumans a lot. I read Inhumans more than I read Aquaman, but when I've read of Aquaman, there's a lot of similarities just as far as how their relationship works in Humans and
I was gonna say, she sounds a lot like Mira.
She does, because she can hold her own, she's a badass, and she runs the shit a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing, Inhumans end up being really cool for like Marvel's cosmology because they connect Earth to the Kree Empire, and more than just like, oh, we got to fight them, or like, you know, even, I mean, they predate Captain Marvel in terms of that connection.
And by proxy, the Skrulls.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. Because for a while, the Inhumans actually ran the Kree Empire.
Yes.
But that didn't work out.
Yes.
See.
And then last thing I wanted to say, so, you know how I said that they like to mate within their bloodline? Crystal, fun fact, did marry Quicksilver. So that was a big no-no. Which I think is interesting because then it goes into the, she didn't type of thing. Yeah, so that's Inhumans. Pick it up. They're fantastic. Didn't want to go too much into them. Wanted to really just talk about the royal family. But now it's comic book recommendation time. Guess I'll start it off since I was just speaking. And Humans have a long history, started out in Fantastic Four, but to get really into the modern one, I guess you should start with Infinity, which leads into Inhumanity, and then leads to Miss Marvel, and then the current storyline, Death of the Inhumans, is insane. It's really good. Get to it, but start with Infinity first. It's a long read, but you'll get there. That's by Jonathan Hickman, so get it, read it, you'll like it. Kayla.
Yes. Well, for Starfire, I would recommend going back to the New Teen Titans, which started in 1980. The art is so-so, not Starfire's best look, but that is where her origin story is, and Tamaran comes in issue number 3, so pick that up if you want to.
You'll actually get to see Tamaran.
Yeah, exactly. So start there.
Okay, for Markovia, like I said, if you want to just kind of get the basic sense of it, there's a lot of good Batman and the Outsider stuff. My recommendation is going to be a one-shot, which is kind of weird unto itself, but it's a Final Crisis offshoot, and it's called DC Universe Last Will and Testament. And the concept here, and I really like it, is just Geoforce blames Deathstroke for his sister's death.
Which he should.
Yeah, in a sense, yeah.
Well,
definitely.
I think he should blame his father. But.
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot, but so it's him sort of planning revenge, and there's a lot of good character work, and it's I gotta say, a badass Geoforce moment. So
yeah, and you don't really get to see Geoforce too much, so.
No, not in this way.
Yeah.
It's very humanizing. Check it out.
Pick it up.
Thanks for listening. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter at The Phantom Zone Pod for more podcast updates.
Hi, I'm Ryan, host of Lost in the Long Boxes, a podcast about comics and their societal and historical relevance. I do my best to be impartial and approach the subject matter as objectively as possible. This is a podcast for people that like facts, not a lot of rantings or personal opinions. So check us out at anchor.fm/lostinthelongboxes or on most major hosting services including iTunes and Spotify. That's anchor.fm/lostinthelongboxes. I think you'll be glad you did.